You are listening to Feed the Beast, a weekly podcast exploring all things food with business partners, spouses, and your hosts, Chef Chris Paul and nutritionist Leigh-Ann Charles Paul of Everything We Eat. I hope you're hungry, because it's time to feed
your inner beast.
Welcome back to Feed the Beast on the Grit Live. I'm one of your hosts, Leigh-Ann Charles Paul.
And I'm Chris Paul.
And this week we've got Lumumba.
Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing today?
Hey. From Union League, right?
Union League, yes. Yeah. Union League, and that's where I'm currently working now. I've been at other places, but that's where I'm at now.
Great. Well, we can't wait to talk about where you've been and learn everything about you. Thanks for coming out.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what do we have? Let's talk about our food news just a little bit here. What's going on with the food news?
Yeah, so this week, a really cool article came out from Business Journal. A recent study from the University of California shows that frozen vegetables are actually almost as good or comparable to actual fresh vegetables. Now, the takeaway is, depending on the quality of the vegetable, that makes a huge difference. But there's a misconception that I think a lot of people, one thing they mention is that use vegetables as like ice pack. Yeah. But the reality is, a lot of things like green peas, a lot of the really good, nice corn, bicolor corn, when it's right in peak season and it's harvested and frozen, it's like really the same as if you were picking it. And, you think when you take it to seafood like IQF, instantly frozen sushi grade things, it's the same thing. They're catching a tuna. It's right on board. They process it, freeze it, vacuum seal it. So, that's one thing to take away that, if you are, when you're in the winter and you want to enjoy some peas, don't feel bad. You could actually enjoy it. And the misconception that, oh my God, there's so less nutrition, there's so less quality is actually not true. Now, the difference is, once you thaw it out, I think the shelf life decreases a lot more. You probably want to come from the freezer to using it probably within that day. If you've had something coming from the freezer and then in the fridge for a few days, it tends to degrade a lot faster in comparison to, if you had some fresh peas from a farmer's market, obviously, weeks later, it's probably really good in retaining its
How about
its
that
texture.
cream spinach? Just kidding.
I mean, but that's just another way of just preserving something.
Yeah.
That's just like fermenting, just like pickling. That's just another way. You just get at its peak and you just freeze it. But it all depends on what type of vegetable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's in season and everything like that.
And that's what the study says too. It's the other factor besides the peak season is how it's frozen. If you just threw something in like a quart container that's frostbitten, that's a little bit different than having something that's vacuum sealed, which is probably your best route. And the type of plastic, type of material is vacuum sealed with too makes a huge difference.
So it's so bad, but when I was in college, I used to go to the farmer's market all the time, and I got this wild caught fish. It was a freshwater trout. And I was like so excited. I was like, yeah. It stayed in my freezer for 2 years because I had a dorm the 1 year. So, but I ate it my senior year.
And there for 2 years?
It was in there. Yeah, well, they had some ice on the eyeballs and some frost around it.
I'm so curious on how
I fried it. I fried it because I was like.
Did you let it thaw out fully before you fried it? Or did you just.
Well, I think by that time I had to, right? Because I put it in the batter and then I fried it and it was so good, but it had so many bones. Of course, that's the only thing. Other than that, the flavor was on point.
Yeah, and one thing to take away too, considering other preserving methods, a lot of same article, same study found that the concentration of vitamins, antioxidants, and nutrition were significantly higher in frozen vegetables rather than things that are in cans and in jars. That's the takeaway. It's not to say that the can of green beans, this isn't what we're talking about.
Now, we're talking aluminum cans, though, because if you're, canning yourself, obviously the nutritional properties are a lot different than, Bush's baked beans in a can.
Because you actually know what's going on. You actually know when it was canned and...
You didn't put any added preservatives.
Well, the takeaway still is that from frozen, though, the nutrition is going to retain a lot better than just sitting in a can or a jar. And I mean, I think, like you said, when you add pickling and you're fermenting, then you're adding a different dynamic of nutritional compound. But the takeaway overall is that, don't feel bad eating those frozen vegetables because depending on the quality and the packaging, you're actually doing yourself a favor. And it also decreases a lot of food waste, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Food waste is a really big deal. We should actually have a podcast on food waste because it's it's insane the amount of food we eat.
Or people just don't know how to take one thing and turn it into something else. Just trying to like utilize it, trying to get as much quality as you can out of it. It's just like if you got, say, herbs, it's not going to last long. Fresh herbs, why not turn that into like a herb oil or something like that?
There you go. Or freeze them and like the little, ice cubes. Yeah. Or do what I did, make a fried fish out of it because it's so good. You can do that. You can fried fish. Whatever works for you. I'm not, to the audience out there, don't use that as Leigh-Ann did it. Now it's all
let it fall out completely before you fry. You don't want any splatter or no fires or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, make sure it's cooked thoroughly, fish to the optimal temperatures. Anyway, thanks for the food news. It's an interesting study. We should probably investigate it some more. Let's get back to Lumumba here. So Lumumba, that's a very interesting name. What's the history around that, if there is any?
So basically, growing up, my mom and dad was very into Black culture, what's going on around the world in general. They wanted to give me pretty much a strong name. The name pretty much derived from a South African freedom fighter named Patrice Lumumba, who eventually got assassinated by the CIA. I don't know the full story behind it, but that's where I got my first name from, Lumumba, which means gifted, and my last name is Uhuru, which I know everybody know from the Uhuru furniture.
The UHURU,
But the meaning behind that name means freedom. Basically, if you want to translate it to English, gifted freedom.
I like it. So you are a gifted freedom in the kitchen, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I had the freedom to express myself, have the freedom to show what I'm capable of. So yeah, I mean, it definitely comes out when I cook, or when I express myself.
And that makes sense where I know you've worked with Chris, right, at Park
together. We worked together, yeah.
Yeah, and then you also transitioned to different places, like me as well. Yeah. I have jumped around in different places, and for some people, they can be like, oh, you're not consistent. That's a scary thing to do.
Of course.
But it's not true. You have so much diversity.
Yeah, exactly. It's like so much diversity where it's like, I had that opportunity to dip and dab if I want to, as far as like different cuisines. I don't like to be stuck. In this French category or this Italian. I love food. Period. I love where French is very technique driven and French is very focused on fresh ingredients. Indian, you're dealing with the spices, stuff like that. I love everything. I don't want to just stay in this one box. I like to just play around.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more. I guess you've definitely been in a lot of kitchens in Philly. I mean, we worked at Park in 2008.
Yeah.
And then from there, you give us a little briefing of.
So I worked at Park for 13 months. So I was one of the opening cooks along with Chris. That was like my actual first real kitchen job out of culinary school. I did not know exactly what I was getting myself into when I took that job, which was, don't get me wrong, it was a good experience. But if anybody worked at Park or eaten at Park, they know how huge that place is, and it's pretty much kind of like a factory. But
it's assembly line.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't really learn the actual cooking aspect. You learn more of speed, learning how to put stuff out. So I worked there for a little bit. Worked mornings. Then after that, I left and I went to go work at Amada. So Amada that was the first place where I worked at, where less about the speed, just more honing in on the technique, on how to do certain things, like knife cuts. It was during the time where Jose Garcia was at his peak. He just won Iron Chef, getting all types of recognition. So it was good, and I was there for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. Then went to help open up El Vittori, which is now closed. It was an Italian restaurant that was ran by Chris Painter. Also, Steven Starr co-owned it. I was there for a little bit. Then after that, I left there and I went to work at Serpico. I worked at Fork for 2.5 years, and I left Fork.
Serpico is really cool. And Fork too is doing a great job. Now that his John Pat is at the helm, and they're winning all sorts of awards, really pushing sustainability.
Great food.
That place right there, it really opened my eyes up to more of fermentation, like pickling and kimchi and stuff like that, which I never really knew too much about. And I remember when I first tasted, they had kimchi broccoli rabe, which was like I remember I first ate it, and I was like, this is sour, but I ate it again. I gave it a second try and a third try. Now I start to pick up how complex it is on flavor wise. Once you get past the sourness, you start to pick up certain things with it, and that aspect of fermentation really grew on me, and I really really start to love it. And
it takes such a long time too.
Yeah, it's all about time. It's all about time, and you can't rush it. You actually have to know kind of like what you're doing. It's like certain things. You cover something in salt. That's another way of trying to make sure no bacteria grow into bad bacteria. Or if you fermenting something in a brine, you want to make sure it stays submerged.
Yeah.
If it's not submerged, then it's going to start growing mold and stuff like that on top of it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good tip because a lot of people may ferment at home and they notice that the mold does start to grow, and it's because things do have to be completely submerged.
Exactly.
The vinegars have to do their work. If it's exposed to oxygen, it creates like a environment for all sorts of bacteria.
It also depends on the temperature of the rum as well too. Because I also notice if it's kind of hot as well, it kind of speeds it up. If you want to slow it down, you can put it in a cold place. It will slow it down, but it will still ferment, but it's just at a way slower pace. So it's like you gotta play around with it.
Yeah. So after Fork, where did you?
After Fork, I left Fork. I wasn't working for a little bit, maybe like a month or two. Then I was just working at, just helping out at Jackson. It's a BYOB up in Northern Liberties. Helping out there because the chef hurt himself. That was a fun experience because I pretty much, so he was out, his sous-chef got into some type of altercation. So it was just me and a friend of mine just running somebody else's kitchen. We walked in. We did not really know any of the dishes or anything. We just pretty much walked in. He was just trying to give us a breakdown, but you could tell he was in pain, so he wasn't able to stay the whole entire time. So he's like, okay, we're just figuring things out. We both know how to cook. We both know how to make food taste good. So he's like, okay, we're just going to do it. So we did it for a weekend, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun just walking in. It was like, okay, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's this. We don't know what's that. But you're
a chef. You made it happen.
Yeah, we made it happen, and it turned out well. So one of the chefs at the Union League contacted me. It was like, oh, we're looking for somebody. Your resume looks good. Do you want to come in for an interview? I did not really have no intention on taking the job there. I just wanted to just go in and check it out because I was one of those people that always walk down the street.
Yeah,
and see it. You see it. You're like, oh, this kitchen is huge. It looks nice. I just really wanted to check out your kitchen. That's it.
Yeah, you always see the bakers at 2 a.m., right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
You just see people just working. So I'm like, okay, I'll go in. Why not? I really had no intention of taking the job. Next thing you know, I'm like, I'm working here. So
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, how's your experience there?
It's been pretty good. I feel as though the people I work with are very passionate on what they do. Yeah. Very knowledgeable. There's no ego. I mean, it's a good work environment. They really take care of their employees as well too. Like other places I worked at, it just seems like you collect a paycheck and you also get a headache and frustration and you feel unappreciated. Was there at the Union League, I did not really felt that because it's like people I'm working with been there for 3 years, 4 years, 2 years. And when they told me how long they were there for, I started to think. I'm like, I know why you're here. I know why you've been here this long. And in restaurant years, that's a long time.
Yeah, to be somewhere for 4 years.
So I understand why, and everything started to click. I'm like, okay, I understand why. So it's been good,
So you talk about good work environment. What exactly did you have for the audience out there that may be going into the restaurant, especially young culinary, graduates who are like, I'm going to go into the industry and, I'm going to make it and do all these things. But it's not just the work, right? Yeah. It's also the environment. And I know Vic, we had a guest on here a while back, and he talked about experiencing some sort of discrimination. Yeah. And it's important for people to speak up no matter what the case. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel as though going into the business, it is a lot of hard work. It's not like you're going into finance or programming or anything like that where you kind of get the reward fast as far as financial wise.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
This is like you're not going in, coming straight out of school. You're going to be a chef. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. it's pretty much layers, you know. It's just like you gotta build yourself. The more you learn, the better you get, and you gotta be open to learning. I mean, there's so many ways on how to peel a carrot or how to fillet a fish. You know, whatever works for you, as long as you get the end result that you're looking for. You know, it's not easy. There are places I worked at where I got yelled at for stuff. I remember when I was at Park, that was like one of my first real restaurant jobs. And I just remember being there on a Sunday and it was like busy. Like I had a board full of tickets and people have all these crazy modifications. They want their eggs over easy. They want their eggs sunny side up. All types of crazy stuff, you know? And I just remember where I was just like so far behind trying to get the food out. Because I was still learning at the time as well, too, where I had a chef come up to me and just, like, yell at me. It was, like, just questioning me. It was, like, I hear him, but I was, like, at the same time, I was not focusing on it. I was just focused on getting this food out.
The ticket machine.
Yeah, the ticket machine just, like, overflowing with tickets. It's just, like, when you leave out of work and you just hear that ticket machine, like, if you continue to keep putting the work in, eventually you'll see that reward that you're looking for. It's not going to come in a year span. It's not going to come in 2 years. It's going to take time, you know. And that's something that I learned, you know, over the years. I feel as though I'm at a place where I definitely learned a lot, where I can put something together and I can stand behind it and be proud of it and show what I learned over the years, you know, which is good.
No, those are great tips because us starting this business for other food entrepreneurs starting a business, I think, you know, you go into like, oh yeah, I'm a home cook and the home cook is great. I think it should be.
There's nothing wrong with home cook.
No, it should definitely be appreciated. But the transition from doing something that you do at friends and family into going into a business. I know a lot of friends who, and I'm sure you guys do as well, who have been like, oh yeah, I'm really good at cooking here, so now I'm going to become a chef. So they go to culinary school and they're like, why am I in dish station?
Yeah.
Like, why am I doing dishes?
I mean, like, I had to wash dishes before. I mean, like, it wasn't my job title, but I helped out washing dishes.
Exactly.
I swept the floor. I mopped the floor. I scrubbed walls. I did all of that. I did not just cook. And that right there also teach you how to take pride in your environment as well too.
Yeah, for managerial purposes,
exactly.
right?
You don't want to work in trash. You know, you like it's food, it spills. Like who want to work like that? I don't. I tend to have OCD at times. So.
Well, did you guys see Ratatouille? I always remember the little French lady, keep your station clean.
Yeah,
Just like, so every time I cook, I'm like, gotta keep my station clean.
Yeah, I mean, like, or it's like if you're in the middle of something, it's like at a moment where you just gotta get stuff out. It's like once you get that moment of like 2 minutes, take the time out, just clean up. Yeah. Like if you don't need it, if it's in the way, move it, wipe it down, you know. So.
And it helps build the organizational skills as well of keeping everything flowing. What are your
organization is key, you know, especially like when you're getting bombarded.
Yeah.
The whole term of mise en place is just having things situated properly. Whereas, you know, you become sort of...
mise en place, for those who don't know.
It's everything in its place, essentially,
in
French. And, you know, when, like, an example of part where it's like, it's such a rush where, like, whatever your salt is too far and you have to take a step to reach for it. Yeah. That's the difference of failing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like not being able to move and just sort of always having everything in its place and knowing, almost working like as if you were blindfolded and you would do the same thing is the best case scenario. And, you know, like you said, it sort of switches where, you know, when you're working in a fine-tuned kitchen, like you said, at Armada, you might have a little bit more time and people might be a little bit more relaxed and they're sort of waiting. And it all depends on the setting and you have to sort of modify your station based on the cuisine and the customer base.
But the real takeaway is that if you're going to go into food business, you will be busy.
Yeah.
You will be busy.
Also, it can be repetitive at times.
And it will be repetitive. Sometimes it's not always going to be creative.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to create that beautiful swan or I don't know, whatever. Yeah. I'm not a chef. What are you guys creating that are like super creative?
Well, I mean, you get more elaborate the more you learn, you know, and I think what happens is over time, you know, you just try to get better. No one wants, you know, even the things like we are constantly dicing an onion. That's like a vegetable that's in every dish, every cuisine. So it's like, but every onion I dice now, I'm trying to like get closer to the stem as much as possible, trying to let it bleed less, trying to get my cuts more accurate. And if you don't think in that way, then you shouldn't cook. Yeah, you know, if every onion that comes to your board is just like, oh, this is just an onion, if you don't respect that onion, then you won't respect that duck breast, that you
Exactly.
won't respect that scallop. And that's the basic takeaway for me is that as I'm touching ingredients, especially now that like I paid for it and it costs money and I actually notice it, then I care so much more about that onion end, you know,
The yield,
like, because yield is everything.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
You're buying something at a price, but what you actually get out of it is not what it is.
Yeah.
You know, you get a 50-pound bag of onions, there's really only about 40 pounds of usable onion in there.
All right.
You know, but it could
Like
easily
broccoli
be.
is a great example.
Yeah,
too.
even broccoli. But that could be 35 with the wrong cook. That could
Yeah.
be 30.
Yeah.
That could be it could be 20 if you're like just dicing a few inches and then throwing that whole bottom in out,
Whole
and you're not using it for stock.
That's 30 cents.
It's for me. It's like it's now to that point where it's like, okay, I know how to dice onion. I know how to peel a carrot.
Mm-hmm.
It's to the point where it's like, okay, how can I utilize it to the max? Say you almost get down to the root part. You can still use that for stock, or you can burn it and turn it into like a burnt onion powder. Or, for example, carrot. If you're peeling a carrot, how about wash it? Then you can dehydrate it, turn it into a powder. Stuff like that. It's like you can do small stuff to maximize your whatever you're working with, you know.
And that's a cool new trend too, that the ash trend. Which maybe it's not as new. I would say I started seeing it more and more a few years ago, but vegetable
I feel like
ash.
our ancestors may have been doing that way
Well,
back in the
everyone's been
day.
doing everything.
Like in the woods with the ash.
Nothing's new.
Nothing's new. It's just recycled
Exactly.
and maybe refined.
Yeah.
Because you can only have so much stock, right?
Yeah,
and then
of course.
Then you're talking about space. You know, how much
course.
stock can you actually store?
Exactly.
You know, when you're dehydrating and turning things into ash, you're scaling down.
Yeah.
You could take like 100 pounds of carrot peel and make like 2-3 pounds of ash.
Yeah.
That's
it's a
hyper
lot of work.
flavorful. It's not even the work. It's just like the time.
Yeah,
time.
of course.
You know, it's an equation of time, effort, and everything else, and then what makes sense. You know.
One thing I did was at home I had shrimp and I was peeling it. So what I did was I just took the shells, dried it out in the oven, and buzzed it up and added it to panko breadcrumbs.
Oh, cool.
So pretty
Presentable.
much. So shrimp breadcrumbs, and you could put that over top of pasta. So rather than I could have turned it into a stock, or I could turn it into like a shrimp oil. You know, is that I feel as though that separate home cooks from chefs. Stuff like that.
But that's interesting because for the home cook out there, that's a really great technique that they could show their friends and then seem like this, you know, get even more popular for their cooking. So that's a great tip.
It also helps, say if you got shrimp, it also helps maybe intensify the shrimp flavor, bring it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's just another little layer of texture and flavor wise.
That's a great tip. Thanks so much for that, Al.
No problem.
Sorry, do you mind if I call you Al?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Right. Cool. So where are you going from here? Now that you're at the Union League, what's the goal?
Eventually, I want to branch out and do my own thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel as though I'm getting to that position where I learned a lot. You know, I'm not gonna say it's only so much you can learn, but like there's always stuff you can learn. But eventually, you want to put everything that you learn to use. Basically, have that stage and show people like, okay, this is what I can do. Eventually, that's what I want to do. I want to eventually branch off and do my own thing. Maybe 2 years ago, I had a dinner party, which I did 7 courses. And that was the first time I actually was able to showcase what I can do, which was a lot of fun. You know, it was like, there's things I'll if I can go back, I'll tweak it. But that's part of the learning experience. Hopefully one day be a personal chef, you know. Like, I just want to eventually just get out of someone's get out of the shadow and step forward. And
so for our audience out there, Elle's looking for a personal chef. Jobs.
Feel free to contact me.
Feel free to contact him. Where can we find you?
You can find me on my Instagram, which is a_starving_chef88.
A starving chef. I love it. Were you born in 1988?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that is an oxymoron, right? You know, which is the thing when we say like that transition from culinary to cooking. You know, you might actually make like $9-10.
Yeah.
And you, it's like the reality is it's not as glamorous as it seems.
Until you get that one gig.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I worked at Park, I was making $10, $10.50.
Mm.
So that was not much, you know. That was it's like almost as bottom level as like this prep cook and this line cook. I was almost making what prep cooks make. So which was like I accepted it. I knew what it was.
Because it's an experience.
Yeah.
Definitely. But you guys are artists, so it would make sense that you're starving artists until you get, that break, the big break.
Yeah.
And then, so we can find you on _starving_chef88.
Yes.
Okay. For more tips.
More tips and ideas of stuff that I'm just doing as far as food-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. We'll find you on Instagram. And Chris, who are we highlighting this week for Entrepreneur?
Pure Fare is a really great spot. They've actually moved from their previous location, and now they're a little bit further down the street between, I would say, Walnut and Locust. And essentially, it's just they just do a lot of stuff in-house. They have really cool items like energy shots. They have smoothies. They have salads. Sandwiches, just an array of items that is just really good products overall. I think they've been one of the forerunners of this whole sort of health craze. And I think they've just stuck by it. They've been there for maybe 4 or 5 years, even longer, and they've just been really consistent. And I think their products are just really good, honest products that they're sourcing properly, and it's really in-your-face straightforward. It's an open kitchen. Everything's just there. And it's very convenient, too. I think they make it easy to eat healthy because they have a whole open case of just a lot of items. And I think, their flavors are really good. I think Ona Creedy does a great job in just sticking to her guns. I think they've been consistently doing it, and people are resonating to it. And, so just check out Pure Fare. It's next to, they're also on Yoku, which is a smaller sort of fast casual window right next to it. Yeah, check them out. And right around your in-house area.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
I walked by there a few times before. When I walked by there, it was dark, so it was closed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to stop by there.
Yeah.
Nice. So, thank you, Lumumba, for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was so great speaking with you. I loved hearing the diversity that you've had in your background. I mean, we can attest to that ourselves, and I'm sure a lot of our audience members can. Yeah. And it's nice to have somebody on there who could say, hey, I've done this, and I've went to all these great places and have great experiences. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, and your pro tips. Those were really great. I'm going to try the shrimp stuff as well.
Yeah, and be sure our food truck is up and running. We're at Clark Park every Saturday, starting around 6 till around 10 p.m. We're popping up at some festivals in the near future. We have some more events coming. Just be sure to check out our website at everythingweeat.com. Go to our events page, and we'll sort of be uploading as we sort of book these events. So look forward to seeing you guys in the near future. Also, Cook is coming up in August, and that should be a really fun experience.
And check us out on Instagram at Everything We Eat Philly, and also on the Grit Live or Apple Podcasts or all the other podcasts out there. As usual, thank you all for checking in with us. We'll catch you next week with Feed the Beast.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan Martin, the production consultant for The Grit Live. If you enjoy our programming, the most important thing you can do to support us is share each episode with your friends and family. You can also leave us a rating and a review on the podcast player of your choice to help others find us. Thank you for listening.